Robert Downey Jr. might be returning to the MCU?
What?
Well, according to a bunch of news outlets at this point, including Vanity Fair, The Hollywood Reporter, Daniel RPK by way of Esquire, because that's where this actually came from, and ABC, all of them, literally all of them, have reported on him possibly coming back to the MCU. Salutations and fist bumps, folks. Welcome back to The Grid. Now, this news obviously comes after him winning his first Oscar with his supporting role in Oppenheimer, and after he's said multiple times that he was done with that character. Well, at this point, it looks like because maybe, or at least from what Reddit is saying, he has his Oscar, so he might want to come back. But he said that before, that he didn't want to come back to Tony Stark because he wanted to do other things. But hearing him say that he might just come back to the MCU and reprise his role as Tony Stark, I can't tell you that I'm not excited to see it. Because if you're a friend of this channel, you probably already know that I am a big Iron Man fan, and I would be ecstatic to actually see that happen. But according to the news outlets that I've been reading today, and like I said, they have literally been everywhere, all of them at the same time, no pun intended. From his own words, he has mentioned that this role is too integral a part of his DNA. At least that's what he told Esquire in his newest profile with them. And in it, he goes on to say that that role chose him, then finishing his statement basically saying that Kevin Feige is the house and you don't bet against him. And at least for me, I would have to agree that the role definitely did choose RDJ as Tony Stark. I mean, at this point, do you think, or when you think of Tony Stark, do you think of anybody else other than Robert Downey Jr.? Probably no. And even to the point when you, or maybe just me, that I read comics, and specifically Iron Man comics, anywhere that he shows up, I hear Robert Downey Jr.'s voice in my head, and it almost feels like everything that is going on inside of the comics with Tony is practically taken from what Robert Downey Jr. did in the role inside the MCU. He almost practically looks like him inside of the comic. So I say again, no matter which era you read, whether it be golden, silver, or current, or whatever, when you read Tony Stark, you probably hear his voice in your head. At the same time, like I said earlier in this video and in others, Robert Downey Jr. mentioned multiple times to multiple people that he was not going to come back as Tony. Plus, Kevin Feige has also stood firm on his business in terms of not cheapening the moment that we had in 2019 with Avengers Endgame. Specifically, he has even said that he would not touch that moment at all. And speaking of that moment, it was probably, along with a bunch of other things inside of the MCU in terms of Tony's portrayal by RDJ, it was more than likely improv. To that regard, Miss Pepper Potts, Gwyneth Paltrow, has actually said that on set, everything had to be real for him to actually feel it inside the character. So unless they found a way to do that justice and actually make it feel natural for him inside the character, on set and everywhere else, it would have to be something that actually made sense in every facet of his character. So that would mean it's tough to see exactly where they would probably put him. But on that note, I've been thinking about this a lot today, specifically because there's at least 3 places that he could go if it were natural enough. Now, in terms of possible places that he could show up, the most obvious low-hanging fruit and easiest place to put him would be inside of Avengers Secret Wars, especially if it's going to be a 2-part movie. Then the other place that I could see him showing up would be, obviously, Fantastic Four. That would usually, or for me, that would need to happen inside of an end credit cameo of some sort. That would then lead into Secret War, similar to the types of cameos that we got from the X-Men in the Marvel. And my final guess would have to be in a Tom Holland-led Spider-Man film because of the chemistry and the storyline that was built between Tony and Tom Holland's Peter. But that would then mean that it would have to come with another multiversal story for Spidey because of the fact that Tony's death reaches into Far From Home, and again, Feige has already said that he is not going to undo the death of Tony. Now, it would be pretty expensive to actually get him back on set, but if he's opening the door at this point, you might as well go ahead and walk through it, Marvel, because yeah, it just makes sense. So I can't see why they wouldn't be discussing it at Marvel Studios if, again, he has now opened the door for them to start it. Now, with this news and everything that's happening inside of the X-Men 97 series, the MCU is starting to become really nostalgic, or at least it's starting to feel that way for me. And if you feel the exact same way that I do, go ahead and hit this playlist up here. And until then, y'all be smooth. Blurt out.